Welcome to The Explainer. So, I want you to just picture a scene for a second. You're standing around a fire. It's, 50,000 BC. The sun just went down. There are no screens, no notifications, absolutely no modern distractions. It's literally just you, the warmth of the flames, and, well, the thick, choking smoke curling directly into your face. You see, for hundreds of thousands of years, every human and pre-human ancestor who sat near a fire inhaled smoke. Every single day. It was completely unavoidable. But somewhere along that massive timeline, one of our ancestors looked at that smoke and thought, what if I did that on purpose? Which leads us to a pretty wild question. What if our oldest, deadliest habit actually started out as medicine? Okay, let's dive into this massive historical secret because it completely shatters everything you think you know about the origins of smoking. Today, we naturally associate inhaling smoke with a dangerous casual habit. We think of modern cigarettes, colonial trade routes, and engineered addictive chemicals. But the true story of how and why humans first started intentionally inhaling smoke, it predates agriculture. It predates civilization itself. And as we're about to see, it is deeply, deeply rooted in our absolute earliest attempts to heal the human body. And this behavior isn't just old. It spans a truly staggering timeline. The absolute oldest confirmed evidence of controlled fire use goes all the way back 1 million years to Wonder Root Cave down in South Africa. Think about that. Our pre-human cousin, Homo erectus, was breathing smoke daily. Then jump forward to about 12,000 years ago, in a hearth out in the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah, archaeologists actually found the deliberate placement of wild tobacco seeds. Fast forward again to 1550 BC, and we're seeing written medical records of smoke use. By 500 BC, ancient Greeks are actually documenting nomadic tribes inhaling high THC hemp smoke. It's an ancient practice. Now, what's genuinely fascinating here is the anthropological theory that early humans didn't just accidentally inhale the smoke, but were biologically driven to seek out altered states of mind. Researchers like the psychopharmacologist Ronald Siegel have proposed what's known as the intoxication hypothesis. This basically argues that across virtually every human culture ever documented, people have actively sought out ways to alter their consciousness. It suggests this drive is so universal, so persistent, that it essentially acts as a fourth biological drive, right alongside our basic hardwired needs for hunger, thirst, and sex. And if you're sitting there thinking this biological drive is purely a human thing, well, just look at the animal kingdom. Elephants will actually deliberately seek out fermented marula fruit to get a little tipsy. Siberian reindeer? They're known to actively eat psychoactive Amanita muscaria mushrooms. And it gets crazier. The reindeer will literally drink the urine of other reindeer who ate those mushrooms because the psychoactive compounds pass through intact. They are essentially doing drug recycling out in the wild. It just goes to show that the desire to alter one's state of mind is deeply, deeply embedded in animal behavior. But let's pivot from altered states to a much more pressing ancient problem: basic physical survival. This brings us right to the core focus of our explainer, and honestly, a really wild paradox regarding the actual founders of modern medicine. In a world without antibiotics, without modern surgery, zero medical tools that we take for granted today, how do you think an ancient Egyptian or an ancient Greek physician actually treated a patient suffering from a severe respiratory illness? By inhaling smoke. Yes, you heard that right. The crucial point here is exactly this incredibly counterintuitive fact. Early civilizations used plant smoke as a deliberate, rigorous medical treatment. Now, from our modern perspective, treating lung problems by actively inhaling smoke sounds absolutely insane, right? Like a terrible idea. But to the greatest medical minds of antiquity, it was a perfectly logical, widely utilized practice. And this was far from a casual habit. Take ancient India, for example. Over 3,000 years ago, ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine documented a highly sophisticated practice called dhumapana, which literally translates to smoke drinking. This wasn't just something people did casually while hanging out. The ancient medical texts detailed very specific medicinal plants, precise preparations, and exact conditions to be treated. It was a refined, structured medical system with literal centuries of trial and error backing it up. You really get a sense of the sheer scale of this practice when you look at revered medical minds across the entire globe. The Ebers Papyrus from ancient Egypt, which dates way back to 1550 BC, explicitly describes inhaling smoke from herbs like henbane to treat throat and lung conditions. Over in ancient Greece, Hippocrates, the very guy modern doctors take their oath from, wrote about using herbal vapors specifically for lung diseases. And of course, Ayurveda in ancient India with dhumapana.
In almost every early civilization on record, inhaling smoke was a recognized, vital therapeutic practice. Why? Because in the ancient world, a treatment that worked even some of the time was a massive, life-saving victory. So let's break down the actual science behind their thinking, because the logic is surprisingly sound. If a plant has genuine pharmacological properties, you need a highly effective way to get it into the body. By combusting specific medicinal herbs, the smoke acts as a literal pharmacological carrier. It delivers those active medicinal compounds directly into the lungs and straight into the bloodstream. Now, while the burning part is obviously dangerous for your lungs, they were essentially inventing the exact biological delivery system we still rely on today with things like modern asthma inhalers, nebulizers, and anesthetic gases. Pretty brilliant, right? Section 1. Sacred rituals and social infrastructure. Because beyond just physical medicine, plant smoke was absolutely vital for social and spiritual survival. Physical ailments were really only half the battle for early humans. Maintaining group trust and a spiritual connection was just as crucial. When we look at indigenous American tobacco use, we see a plant that was considered entirely sacred. It was used strictly for healing and spiritual communication. In these ancient cultures, smoke was viewed as a living messenger that actually traveled between worlds, carrying prayers upward. It served as a binding agreement between tribes, and it was a highly disciplined, reverent practice. You definitely didn't just chain smoke it while waiting for the bus. It was deeply controlled and respected. Meanwhile, over on the Eurasian steppe around 500 BC, the Scythians were utilizing smoke for some extremely powerful social bonding. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus documented their elaborate vapor baths. They would essentially set up these small, enclosed tents, heat up bronze braziers and stones until they were literally glowing, and then throw high-THC hemp seeds directly onto the hot stones. They'd sit inside, inhale the trapped smoke, and Herodotus wrote that they would howl with pleasure. Now, for centuries, historians thought he was just making it up or exaggerating. But then archaeologists actually dug up Scythian burial mounds and found the bronze braziers, the stones, and the hemp residue exactly as he described. And this shared altered state was absolutely critical for survival. Think of it this way. The ritual smoke circle wasn't just a fun party. It was essential social infrastructure. Humans are deeply, fundamentally social animals. For most of our evolutionary history, isolated individuals died and cohesive groups survived. Modern neuroscience even backs this up, confirming that shared rituals and synchronized neural activity build deep, deep trust. Breathing in that smoke together in an enclosed space. It was literally a form of social technology that built the mutual understanding necessary to face a wildly dangerous world together. Section 2. The Great Corruption. So how did we take such a dark turn? How did we go from a measured, sacred medicine to a devastating global crisis? Well, the transition was, quite frankly, historically disastrous. When European explorers arrived in the Americas in the 15th century, they discovered indigenous people smoking and immediately tried it themselves. Within decades, it was industrialized into a global commodity. By the 1700s, aristocratic powdered snuff became an absolute obsession across the continent. But the real nail in the coffin was the early 1900s with the mass-manufactured cigarette, making it cheap and everywhere. And then, by the mid-20th century, chemical compounds were specifically added to maximize rapid physical addiction. Which leaves us with this massive, glaring moral chasm. We're looking at two vastly different figures exploiting the exact same plant. On the one hand, you have the ancient shaman, or physician, communal, focused entirely on healing and spiritual connection, and highly disciplined. On the other, the 20th century tobacco executive, financially extractive, physically destructive, engineering addiction, and marketing directly to youth. Both involve smoke, but that's where the similarities completely end. Literally nothing else is the same. 4 centuries. Just 400 years. That is the staggeringly brief amount of time it took to completely strip away thousands and thousands of years of deep ritual, rigorous medical protocol, and sacred reverence. In just a blink of an eye, historically, industrialists transformed humanity's oldest, most revered medicine into a global epidemic of addiction. But despite this modern corruption, the behavioral drive itself remains ancient. It predates agriculture, it predates pottery, it predates literally every civilization you ever learned about in school. There is this unbroken 100,000-year thread of fire, smoke, breath, and human experience that connects us directly to our ancestors. So I really want to leave you with this final thought. Next time you catch a whiff of wood smoke on a cold night, or you're sitting around a summer campfire, ask yourself, are you just staying warm, Or are you feeling the exact same biological echo that drove humanity's oldest medical and social ritual? Think about that next time you breathe in.